Hey there, Mr. Reddit here. Welcome back to another episode of r/entitled Parent Stories. Our first story we'll be reading today. Karen demands we start selling her homemade vegan meatballs. After that, not the owner, not an employee. And after that, entitled mom thinks I should give my diabetic snacks to her daughter. Now for every thumbs up this video gets, one Karen does not get to eat any Oreos. Oh, you've taken this too far, Reddit boy. So please smash that like button. And if you're new, subscribe and turn on notifications for new stories from Reddit every single day. Karen demands we start selling her homemade vegan meatballs. Way back when I was running a small cafe in a wee seaside town for what was supposed to be a month, it turned into 9 because of complications with the owner's surgery, but it was mostly fun, fine, and a little eye-opening. Until Karen. Karen had decided to make her own business from home selling vegan meatball type things. Good for her, but we made everything in our kitchen and cabinets ourselves, and we were proud of it. She would not accept this as an answer and actually threw 2 of these meatballs over the counter at me to give to the owner. Side note, I knew now why my friendly waitress called me from the back to deal with this woman, and the owner at the time was on a liquid diet in the hospital. After assuring her I would pass them on, she demanded the owner's personal number, which there was no way in heck I was about to give it to her. Karen argues and argues, and then argues a bit more, getting a bit louder in the process. Finally, I tell her, "What about your rude BS attitude makes you think we'd even consider working with you?" As she was standing there with her mouth open, I see tucked under the till was a single blue card. One of our not used in over a year business cards that had been discovered in an old folder a few days earlier. I hand that over without a word, and Karen snatched it like a kid and stomped out and waited by our wall-length windows. The look on her face when I answered the call from inside the shop was the best part of the week. I'd already said she wasn't getting anyone's personal number, so why she thought I had broken and given her anything other than the shop number was beyond me. Not the owner, not an employee. So, first time making a post. To kind of give people a picture of myself at the time this happened, I worked for the state, dealing with public benefits and assistance SNAP Medicaid and things like that. I'm 6 foot 2 inches tall. I used to be a powerlifter and I weigh 340 pounds, so yeah, I'm a big guy. The dress code for the state is business casual unless you're working at the central office for a public-facing position. I worked on the phones 90% of the time. On the day in question in 2018, I was wearing the one and only suit I own, being the size that the suit is tailored. Now this was a few years ago, so some things will be paraphrased as my memory is faulty. Few too many blows to the head in my youth. I DM for a Dungeons & Dragons game every Thursday at a friend of mine's house. I was in my late 30s, and as I was leaving work, my friend GP called me and asked if I could pick him up some new dice, as his 3 dogs decided that his dice looked like treats. So I hit a local game store on my way to his place. While I was there, I noticed a frustrated young lady trying to convey something to the owner. She was using ASL, American Sign Language, the only other language I understand besides English. I tapped her on the shoulder and signed to her to see if I could help her out. She explained that she was looking into getting into Dungeons & Dragons with some of her deaf friends from school. So I asked her some questions and found that they have never played, but due to the success of Critical Role, they want to try, and she is going to DM. I help her get everything she will need for new players, and she was just so happy that someone could help her out using American Sign Language, and that she thought it was really thoughtful of the owner to learn. I explained to her that she had been working with the owner when I got there, and that I was just an avid Dungeons & Dragons fan and DM myself, and that I was just stopping in for some dice. She looked at me confused and signed, "So you don't work here?" "Nope, just wanted to help since I know sign language." We laughed. So back to getting dice. That's when Karen striked. She starts yelling at the owner of the store, wanting to know why the owner was spending all of his time helping the cute young lady, but would not be bothered to help an elderly customer who just wanted to get her grandkid a video game. This game store does not sell video games. Now let's paint a picture. Karen here is about 5 feet tall, standard Karen haircut, and maybe 240 in weight. And in her early 40s, if she has a grandkid that can play video games, some poor choices may have been made in her past. The actual owner of the store said I help people that come into the counter, and if they need help with something out on the floor, I help them as best that I can. Then Karen points at me and says, "No, I'm talking about the owner." The actual owner of the store and I look at each other and at the same time say, "Lady, I/he does not work here, and I/he is the owner, and the place does not sell video games." We smile at each other. This is where Karen explodes on why does a game store not sell video games, and what is she going to do now? She waddles over to me and starts poking me in the chest, ranting something along the lines of, I should be nicer to older customers, and they are the ones keeping my store open. At this point, I pull out my state employee badge and point at it and say real slowly, "Lady, I don't work here. And you can go next door to insert name of big box store that rhymes with Dred Myers." I then explained that by state and federal law, by poking me in the chest, she was guilty of assault. At this point, she sputtered and then slapped me. When I started to talk again, she slapped me again. At this point, I got ticked off, stood to my full height, and yelled at the top of my lungs that if she touched me one more time, that I would defend myself and she would not like the results. At this point, the owner has called the police and has the phone on speaker. We all hear when dispatch states that the officer is 2 minutes out. She screams and then tries to get me again. I stopped her, spun her around and held her in place so that she couldn't get me again. This is when the police showed up. Now when you have a guy standing a foot plus taller holding this screaming lady at bay, cops are automatically going to think that you are in the wrong. Officer 1 is a lady, Officer 2 is a guy. Officer 1 comes in first and sees this and says, "Sir, please let go of this woman." I said I will as long as she won't hit me again. Karen starts going off on how I had hit her and that she was just defending herself and that I needed to be arrested. Officer 2, hearing this, pulls his taser and says, "Man, you need to let her go now." I let her go and raise my hands to my head level. Karen spins around, kicks me, and then slaps me again. The owner of the shop says that's the third and fourth time that she's assaulted me. Officer 1 then places Karen in cuffs and escorts her out to the car. Officer 2 is a short guy, about 5'8" tall or so, still pointing the taser at me and wants to cuff me. I explained that was not going to happen, as my wrists are too big for his cuffs and that he would need zip cuffs, and then he needed to call a sergeant if he was going to actually try and arrest me. Officer 2 steps back and says, "Are you resisting arrest?" I said no, but I will be exercising my rights to a lawful investigation prior to arrest. You know, innocent until proven guilty and that jazz, as I was the one defending myself from that screaming Karen your partner just took outside. Now if you want me cuffed while you determine what's going on so you feel safe, I fully agree to that. I'm just explaining that my wrists won't fit in your metal cuffs. Officer 1 comes back in and says that Karen has been detained and is demanding a supervisor. The store owner pipes in with his side of the story, Officer 2 still pointing a taser at me, and explains that Karen assaulted me twice and was in the process of assaulting me a third time before I had restrained her. At this point, Officer 2 puts his taser away and then jokingly asks if he can see if the cuffs really won't fit. I hold out my right hand and he pulls out his cuffs and is like, "Dang, they won't fit." For everyone's information, minimum inside perimeter of the bracelet is 7.9 inches, 20 centimeters, when the ratchet is engaged at the first notch. The maximum perimeter is 6.5 inches when the ratchet is engaged at the last notch. My wrist is 10 inches around. Officers 1 and 2 were both amazed that the cuffs would not actually fit me and that even if they did, due to my size, they would not be able to cuff me behind the back. At this time, the sergeant shows up. He walks in and sees me and says, "Hey Rusty, long time no see." Me, "Hey Sarge, how are things?" Long story shorter, Karen was arrested for assault and heck yes, I pressed charges. From what I was told by Sarge, this was her 12th incident of similar issues, but the first time that she had gotten violent with someone. Wow, that guy sounds huge. Who is the biggest person you've ever seen in your life? Please let us know. Yo mom, got him! Entitled Mom thinks I should give my diabetic snacks to her daughter. So I'm a type 1 diabetic, and in the morning I went out for a bike ride. As I'm a diabetic, I always bring snacks with me in case I get low or get hungry. I bring a juice box, a few glucose tablets, 2 fruit chew bars, and 2 granola bars, just enough for me to be able to correct my blood sugar twice and have a small snack. As I was biking home, I passed someone sitting on the ground who looked like they were kinda distressed, so I pulled over to ask if they were okay. The guy was a little younger than me and told me he was a diabetic and showed me his medical alert necklace. He explained that he had gone low while biking but forgot to refill the snacks in his bag when he had left, so he was trying to figure out what to do. No one to bring him anything, but didn't want to call an ambulance over this. I offered him my snacks and to sit with him while we waited for it to go back up, explaining that I was a diabetic. After I had just sat down with him and given him the tablets, a woman came over and asked for my juice box for her daughter. I explained that I was giving him what I had because he was a diabetic and had low blood sugar, and I needed the rest to ensure I could get home safe. She started to tell me that she and her daughter had been biking for a few hours and she was hungry and just wanted my juice box and a granola bar. I asked if her daughter was diabetic and she said no, so I apologized and again explained nicely that I need those for myself. The conversation that followed is as such. Entitled Mom: "So why did you give him some?" Me: "Because he's a diabetic and his blood sugar is very low. For reference, our blood sugar is supposed to be between 4 and 8, and his was at 2.3. "Do you know him?" "No, but as a diabetic, I know how dangerous lows can be, and if I was in his position, I'd hope a fellow diabetic would try to help me." "So, you don't know him?" The conversation continued like that, she asking why I cared if I didn't know him and me giving the same explanation, until the guy rechecked his blood sugar and it was back up to 3.5. As this was still a little too low for both of us to feel comfortable, I grabbed my juice to give it to him, and this is when Entitled Mom tried to grab it out of my hand, saying that if his blood sugar was still low, I should just call him an ambulance, and then I could give my snacks to her and her daughter. At this point, I was honestly kind of upset and told her to buzz off, and that as a mom, she should have thought to bring snacks for her daughter, and if I hadn't gone by, what would she have done? She went red in the face, called me a jerk, and stormed back with her daughter. The guy's levels went up and we parted ways, and as I started to bike away, I heard Mom shout after me, calling me a jerk again. Karen is taking advantage of my online baking business. I, 24 female, started this small online baking business almost 3 years ago. I'm currently pursuing an advanced degree and have given all the rights to my older sister, who's 27. We are officially registered as a bakery in our town. I am responsible for updating the monthly calendars and editing photos that are being posted on our Instagram and our Facebook. I'm in charge of the PR, so I have access to both accounts. I noticed that we had a regular customer who frequently orders our French macaroons. No big deal. Then I got a little sus when she started asking for specific colors while sending cake inspos. When I did a little digging, lo and behold, she has her own online cake business too. She was also using our macaroons on her cakes, repeatedly. At first, I was like, huh? This isn't new. I asked someone else to properly credit us and we got tagged repeatedly for the macaroons we made. It was so simple, so I messaged the said customer and asked the same thing. The customer agreed. Well, I just discovered that what this girl did was literally tag us in a single photo. We don't pop up at all on the caption, no mention of our name alongside the macaroons that we made. We can't even share it. It was pretty obvious that she didn't want us to have any association with her cakes. To be honest, my sister's macaroons were the reason her cakes look well made. This is probably no big deal for you guys out there, but this is a small town, and only my sister and another local bake shop make them. They're pretty difficult to master. I got upset as heck when she recently posted a photo of her latest menu featuring our macaroons. It literally says 6 pieces macaroons on her cakes. That's the quantity that we sell. I saw red and immediately typed this message. Hi ma'am, we saw your posted photos and I think it's a bit unfair to advertise that you include 6 pieces macaroons on her cakes. But nowhere did it say that we bake them for you, albeit unknowingly and without our permission. We had to do our own digging. Those are our shop's macaroons. You are willingly deceiving your customers by purposely omitting that another small local business produces these high-quality baked products for your cakes. See first photo equals her menu. So if you're going to continue using our French macaroons for your products permanently, it is only right that you place our name alongside the macaroons each time you use them. 6 pieces macaroons by our shop. For example, see second photo, a customer/baker who featured our name and product on her post. A good baker knows how to properly credit the local businesses that she employs. It's a small thing, but very thoughtful nonetheless. I hope you will do the same for your future transactions with us. My sister thought I was being rude, but I told her that I was just being stern. Her point was that our product is no longer ours once she puts it into her cake. I told her that it's different when it comes to baked goods. She's literally taking credit for her, sister's, hard work. So, am I the jerk? Edit. Forgot to say that every time we get credited on our products, they get thanked plus shared on our page for exposure. It's how we support other local businesses. It's common courtesy. Well, who do you agree with? OP or the cake maker? Please let us know. Now I really want some cake. It's difficult to say you don't work there when you are clearly working there. This incident took place about 10 years ago or so at my favorite pub next to my college alma mater. I had been going there about 3 years at the time and had gotten along extremely well with the staff. I'd stop almost every day after work to wind down. I work in the steel industry 4 minutes away. This takes place on a Saturday, and unbeknown to me at first, the same exact day a huge tailgating extravaganza is going on near the stadium for a huge rivalry game that is to take place in the afternoon. I had just gotten off work and wandered in and found my favorite spot at the bar, and as I sat, I started seeing more and more folks filter in. Older people, younger people, kids with parents, and of course, college kids. I'm around 38 at the time. Most of the older people and families stayed away from the bar to order food before the big game at the tables. Their pizza was good. Most of the college kids started to gather around the bar, and gather and gather and gather. Within 30 minutes, the bar portion itself packed 3 to 4 people deep, all getting drinks and shots and whatever else they needed. It is a madhouse, so with only one bartender, Missy, yeah, that's her name, and I think one bar back, they are getting overwhelmed. Then it happens. A full, fresh beer and shot are shoved down in front of me by Missy, and she says, "Mr. Majorly, dishes, now!" before she goes back to serving the mob of college football fanatics. I glance down to where the glasses are normally, and it's empty, nearly 100%. I guzzle some of the beer, slam down the shot, roll up my sleeves, and walk behind the bar to where the sinks are. I'm pounding out these dishes through 3 different sinks. Suds and water are flying everywhere. And of course, that's when it starts. Jerk 1. "Can I get a beer and a shot?" Me. "Sorry, don't work here," as the water splashes in my face. Jerk 2. "Can I get some wings and a beer?" Me. "Talk to Missy, I don't work here," as I'm stacking clean glasses. Jerk 3. "Can I get a round of fireballs for friends?" Me. Stacking 16-ounce wet glasses in a cooler to frost. "Sorry, I don't work here." Jerk 3. "What? Yes you do." "Nope, I'm getting free drinks to do dishes." "I need that gig. Can I at least get a beer?" Me. "I don't know what tab is what. Gotta wait for Missy," as I jump down to the end and start to move more glasses. This same exact scenario plays out every couple of minutes as people wade in from the back to the front, over and over, at least 40 times. Finally, the game is about to start, and the crowd starts to slowly filter out after an hour. I'm caught up and lean back to take a breath and stare at my shriveled up hands. Missy runs into the back to get some last-minute food order, and there it is, a finger snap. I look over, and some young college kid is getting my attention. Let's call her Karen. Karen. "One more shot before I go." She's slurring badly. Me. "I don't work here. Sorry, I was just helping with dishes." "Of course you do." I think she hiccuped. "Just get me my shot so I can go, old man," as she slaps down a $5 bill. Me blinks repeatedly. Nope, this ain't happening. I lean forward from where I was resting, grab a double shot glass, and set it in front of her. Grab her drink choice and fill it to the brim. As she reaches for it, I pick it up and slam it down in 0.32 milliseconds right in front of her. She's just sitting there staring at me with half rage / half bewildered look. Me. "You're drunk and cut off as of this moment. Take your money and kindly leave. I hope you have fun at the game if you remember it." As she was trying to speak, I just pointed to the door. Defeated, she staggered out. I finally got to go back and sit at my seat and relax. I never did tell Missy. Glorified manager wants job security. So I work in the tow industry as a dispatch supervisor for a company that specializes in heavy equipment moves and trailers, on top of regular tow industry stuff like tire changes, boosts, and lockout services. I have a manager who we'll call Jeff. Jeff is a rough and tumble sort, a friend of the club, if you catch my meaning, and is more likely to yell and scream rather than commit to the customer service part of the job, which is my specialty. But that also extends to how he treats his employees. My way or the highway. Well, Jeff seems to have this idea that he is the only one who can quote customers on either long distance, heavy equipment, and trailer transports. He's not. For the record, every single dispatcher we have is perfectly capable of quoting the correct prices and booking calls, seeing as we do this every day that he's not around. But still, he gets up in arms and yells if we take calls and set them up without his involvement. He's been with the company 40 years, so he's embedded, but literally does the exact same job the dispatchers do and sometimes drives a truck to help out on the road. One day in particular, I take a call and quote the customer. Jeff loses his crap, starts flipping out about how he's supposed to be taking all those calls, and from this point on, I am to direct every call about heavy equipment, trailers, or long-distance moves to him so he could retain his large salary and job security. I don't think he really thought that one through, so malicious compliance it is. After the end of his shift, send him a message with the name and number of the caller. Weekend, send him a message. Middle of the night, send him a message. He's on vacation, send him a message. Camping, send him a message. On a ride with his brothers, send him a message. As one would imagine, he couldn't keep up with the demand, and as a result, we started to lose sales, constantly forgetting things, and customers would go elsewhere. Eventually, the boss hears of it. He's normally a pretty hands-off type of boss. He signs the checks, sure, but most of the time he's out on his boat ignoring the world. Boss calls him in to find out why he's been so off, and manager attempts to throw me and my team under the bus. So I talk to the boss, explain exactly what was said. Thankfully, the boss has known him for 40 years and knows what he's like, so he understands completely and has a big chat with him about it. Result? He's no longer allowed to monopolize handling the calls for the lion's share of the business, and our team of experienced dispatchers now no longer have to involve him in every call for service. Jeff generally avoids me now at work. I'm fine with that. Am I the jerk for telling my mom that my dad isn't interested in her anymore? My mom and dad have been separated for 26 years. Their separation ended badly and resulted in her getting custody of me and my brother. My dad went down a bad path in life and chose not to see us when we were growing up, so I knew nothing about him. It wasn't until I was 18 that he had regretted it and wanted a relationship with us. I always wanted to know my dad, so I agreed, but I had asked my mom if she was fine with it and asked if she would go with me, and she told me she was and would go with me. The first meeting ended up really well, except my mom kept throwing in his face that he left us. I had asked her to stop because it was making us uncomfortable. That's when she got upset and started telling my dad horrible stories about me. I really didn't know how to react. I was dumbfounded. So when we left, I asked her why she'd tell him stories about my past, and she told me that he needed to know. My dad and I made an agreement that we would see each other at least 3 times out of the year since he lives a bit away from me. My mom insisted that she tag along. It wasn't an issue, but my mom tends to dictate what we're going to do and how we're going to do it. She also spends over 5 hours putting on makeup to impress my dad and expects us all to wait for her. Then, when we talk about events in our lives, she tends to always talk badly about me. She's even gone as far as to make fun of my anxiety, claiming I don't have it and I'm just a good actress to my dad. Whenever me and my dad end up in conversation, she acts almost jealous and tries to talk over me the entire time. At one point, she's gone as far as to email my dad lies about me, saying not to get too close to me because I'm very jealous of his relationships with my family and I was manipulative. I'm really not sure why she does this, especially since all I was trying to do was have a bond with my father. After years of her constantly putting me down to my dad, I had enough. I had graduated from college and we were out celebrating me getting my degree. I asked my boyfriend if he could order my food for me because it was too loud and I have a soft-spoken voice, so the waiter couldn't hear me. My mom decided to make fun of me in front of my family and boyfriend, then proceeded to tell my dad, who attended my graduation, that he cursed her with a daughter like me because I was so weak. At that point, I just saw red because my celebration was ruined, so I got up from the table and yelled, "At least I'm not trying to constantly chase and impress someone that doesn't want me anymore by bringing my kids down," and walked out of my own party. My mom didn't talk to me for weeks, and my family says that I'm the jerk for hurting her feelings. I felt bad about how things went down, but I also don't feel like I was entirely wrong either. Am I the jerk? Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or their mom? Please let us know. Homeless ex-neighbor keeps showing up at our house, has told the neighborhood kids he's going to move into our backyard. So, this guy lived in the same house, duplex, did not live with us, as us for a couple of years. The entire time we've lived here, his roommate has been trying to get him to move out as it's a one-bedroom among other things. He's not on a lease, blah blah blah. 2 to 3 months ago, our neighbor put his foot down and gave the guy notice to move out, paid for a motel for a week on top of that for him. After that week, he showed back up and was sleeping on our neighbor's porch. The weather was super bad, and my husband went and took him dinner and asked what was up. He said he was just in between places and had somewhere to go after 4 days. My husband, somewhat reluctantly, scared it would become a thing, let him sleep in one of our spare vehicles since it would be very cold and rainy and we were clear it was just for those 4 days, which, like we knew, was a gamble. But honestly, we could not watch him sleeping exposed in that weather, and it was just for a few days. Clearly, in hindsight, a mess up. That was last week. Got home from work today and saw him hanging out with our neighbor and the neighbor's kids. Okay, go inside, change, and I'm cutting up stuff for dinner. Our kitchen windows face our side and backyard. I look up since I see something catch my eye out the window. He's walking through our backyard that only leads to our own backyard, a single woman's backyard, and a family's fenced-in yard. Then he just stood there. My husband saw and quietly came to the kitchen window next to me. After, ex-neighbor left our yard via someone else's backyard. So after he left, my husband went outside and like ex-neighbor moved one of our patio chairs into the L-shaped back part of our house and had his coat hung on it. My husband was confused. Went and asked the neighbor's kids if they had talked to him. Apparently, he told them that he's been going to the store every day, the same one, trying to get a tent so he can make a camp in our backyard, and how he will have to get a tarp to go over it too, and likes planning out his hobo camp he's going to try to set up in our backyard. Our backyard is small. Having a camp will take up 1/2 of the yard. We have 2 large dogs, one who greatly enjoys pooping on things, and he has not talked to us since we let him stay in the car, and my husband made it clear it was temporary. Upstairs neighbor is livid with ex-neighbor since ex-neighbor has been hanging out on his steps when he's at work and stuff too. Feel bad for the dude, not gonna lie, but there's a huge homeless camp the next town over and he refuses to do anything to make his life better, to the point he legit just expects people to let him live off of them, which is why he has never stayed in our house. Really just hope he doesn't, because he's just on so many people's last nerve, and at this point, everyone dislikes him and some people are scared of him. We have places to help people who are homeless in the area, he just keeps trying to live off of the neighborhood though. Well, what would you do in this situation? Would you let him set up camp in your backyard or not? Please let us know. I'd probably call the cops on him, to be honest. I bought this motherboard almost a year ago and only opened it now, so give me my money back. I work cashier customer service in a computer department store, and I'm going about my day when this skinny short guy comes through my line holding a couple motherboards in his hand. He drops them on the counter and says, "I'd like to make an exchange. This motherboard has bent pins." I'm sorry to hear that. Was it like that out of the box? I said, to which he replies yes. So I go ahead and scan the receipt and search the database for this particular serial number. Lo and behold, this thing was purchased slightly less than a year ago, and only now is he coming back to the store complaining that the pins are bent, claiming he only opened the box just recently. Since the purchase was made so long ago, I'd have to have a manager come and decide if we can take it back. However, I trust S, name of my manager for this tale, and I think he'll be able to help you out. I dial the manager number on my register phone and wait for his arrival. Upon arriving, I explain the situation and then the customer shares his thoughts. His logic was, this was a $200 ITX open box motherboard, sold for $50. It included no I/O shield, cables, or anything else apart from the board. Since the pins were bent, let's go with his story that they came that way. He believed he could return it. Since he purchased a CPU alongside it, the price dropped to $30. This man bought a $200 motherboard for $30 and didn't think, maybe this is too good to be true, or didn't think to look as to why it was so cheap. After all this BS is spewed to my manager, Both of us quickly realized this was most likely a BS return, with the dude having bent the pins somehow and getting upset about it. After explaining that we can just give him this new motherboard that he picked out, retailing at $70, he gets upset. My manager leaves and he tells me, "Total incompetence." And from this point, I basically just want this dude to leave, and I'm also making sure he understands that none of what is happening is my fault. He leaves, and the customers next to him look at me with pitiful eyes and sighs of relief alongside me, as I look at them in exhaustion, and they're like, "Man, that was something," and I call over my next customer. Come listen to this video next, you're not gonna believe what happens. And please support our channel by joining as a member today, and we'll give you a special shout out in our next video. And if you'd ever like us to make a video for you, head over to our Fiverr, link pinned in the comments below.